First contact gone wrong. The morning New Earth Academy's alert system blared to life wasn't supposed to be anything special. Well, as not special as a morning could be at humanity's most prestigious spacefaring high school, where regular chemistry experiments occasionally bent local spacetime, and the cafeteria served food from 17 different solar systems. Principal Sarah Chen was in the middle of mediating a dispute between a crystalline exchange student who insisted on communicating through interpretive light patterns and a human teenager who kept responding with tick-tock dances when the first warning came. The school's eye security system, affectionately nicknamed HOLNUS, Holistic Operational Learning and Management Emergency System, interrupted with an uncharacteristically urgent tone. Principal Chen, we have multiple unidentified vessels dropping out of hyperspace. Their energy signatures match no known peaceful civilization in our database. Holmes paused, its holographic interface flickering with analytical patterns. They appear to be charging weapons. Chen's hand instinctively moved to the medallion at her throat, a seemingly decorative piece that doubled as a tactical command center. 20 years as an Earth Fleet commander hadn't dulled her combat instincts. They'd just been redirected toward managing teenager-induced chaos. Today of all days, she muttered, watching as the ships emerged from hyperspace like predatory fish, cutting through cosmic waters. It was Cultural Exchange Day, when New Earth Academy opened its doors to prospective students and their families from across the galaxy. The school's grand hall was already filling with visitors, its transparent dome offering a perfect view of the approaching threat. "Hole Emise, initiate Protocol Minerva," Chen commanded, her voice steady. "And get me Dr. Jackson in engineering. Tell him it's time to test those theoretical defense modifications he swore he wasn't making." The aliens struck without warning or demand for surrender. Their ships, angular constructions of black metal that seemed to absorb light, launched what appeared to be standard boarding pods. But as they penetrated the school's outer shields, Chen smiled. The aliens had just made their first mistake. New Earth Academy's architecture was deceptive. Behind its elegant spires and sweeping educational spaces lay the culmination of humanity's defensive paranoia. Every window could become a hardened barrier. Every hallway could transform into a tactical choke point. Even the lockers were reinforced to serve as emergency shelters. Students and honored guests. Chen's voice echoed through the school's comm system. Please proceed calmly to your designated safety zones. This is not a drill, but I assure you, we are well prepared for such contingencies. She paused, then added, and yes, this will count toward your emergency response credits. The first boarding pod crashed through the dome above the Grand Hall, but instead of creating panic, it triggered something else entirely. The gathered students, human and alien alike, moved with practiced precision. Senior class president Maria Wong was already organizing the younger students into defensive formations, while the Andromedan exchange students activated their natural camouflage abilities to help guide others to safety. In the engineering wing, Dr. Jackson's theoretical modifications proved to be anything but. Electromagnetic pulses disabled the invaders' primary weapons, while the school's ventilation system, originally designed to handle everything from methane-breathing students to the aftermath of failed chemistry experiments, began selectively adjusting atmospheric conditions in invaded sections. Principal Chen, Holunis reported, the invaders appear to be Krivaks. Their species is known for believing that conquering educational institutions grants them the accumulated knowledge of all students and faculty. Well, Chen replied, watching as her students and staff moved with coordinated efficiency that would have made her old fleet squadrons proud. I suppose we'll have to teach them why that's a fundamentally flawed hypothesis. The Krivaks warriors, emerging from their pods in gleaming black armor adorned with trophies from previous conquests, found themselves facing something they'd never encountered before, a human school that had turned education itself into a weapon. In the chemistry lab, Ms. Rivera's advanced placement students were already synthesizing compounds that would render the aliens' armor brittle, The physics club had repurposed their gravity well experiment into a localized force field generator. Even the drama department was contributing, using their holographic stage equipment to create devastating illusions. Chen activated her medallion's tactical display, watching as red dots representing invaders began encountering the school's layers of defense. Each dot that disappeared represented a lesson being taught, one that the Krivax would never forget. "Whole knees," she commanded, "initiate second phase response, and send a message to the Krivax command ship." She smiled, the expression carrying all the weight of her years both as an educator and a warrior. "Tell them class is in session." The morning hadn't been supposed to be special, but as the sounds of battle began echoing through New Earth Academy's halls, Principal Chen realized it would become something else entirely. A lesson in why attacking the human school was the last mistake any alien race would ever make. The students strike back. The Krivax warriors hadn't expected to be defeated by teenagers wielding modified science fair projects, but that's exactly what was happening in the East Wing of New Earth Academy. Zara Patel, president of the Applied Sciences Club, crouched behind an overturned quantum computing station, her hand steady as she made final adjustments to what had been, only 20 minutes ago, a harmless solar system model. Ready with the gravitational disruptor, she whispered into her comm unit, a repurposed language translator now serving as the students' secure communication network. "Chemistry team in position," came the response from Jun-Ho Kim, whose last place finish in the previous semester's bake sale was now ironically useful. His talent for creating spectacularly unstable compounds had found its perfect application. Through the reinforced windows, another Krivax ship descended through the atmosphere, its black hull reflecting the morning sun like an oil slick. The aliens had expected to find soft targets, children and teachers who would cower before their superior technology. Instead, they were learning a harsh lesson about human ingenuity and the dangers of cornering scientifically literate teenagers. "They're coming through Section C." The warning came from Tara, a Centaurian exchange student whose crystalline body structure allowed her to act as a living surveillance system. Her facets flickered with urgent patterns: 3 squadrons, heavy weapons. Zara nodded, her fingers flying over the control panel she'd jury-rigged from spare parts. "Perfect. That's exactly where we want them." She keyed her comm. "Ms. Rivera, is the chemistry club ready?" "Oh, honey," came the teacher's amused voice. "We've been ready since they interrupted my lecture on explosive reactions. Nobody interrupts my lecture and gets away with it." The first squad of Krivax warriors rounded the corner, their armor gleaming and weapons charged. They moved with military precision, checking corners and scanning for threats. What their scanners failed to detect was the thin film of synthesized compound coating the floor, a special creation of the chemistry club that turned seemingly normal surfaces into something with the approximate friction coefficient of quantum-enhanced ice. The results were immediate and spectacular. Elite alien warriors, each probably worth a small fortune in combat gear, went sliding across the floor like particularly well-armed hockey pucks. Their cursing, automatically translated by the school's systems into 17 different languages, would have earned them detention for a month. But that was just the beginning. "Now," Zora commanded, and her modified solar system model hummed to life. What had once been a teaching aid about planetary gravitational fields became a localized gravity manipulator. The fallen Krivax suddenly found themselves experiencing what it felt like to weigh alternately twice and half their normal mass, in rapid succession. From the ceiling panels, the robotics club's latest projects emerged. Dozens of small drones that had been built for the upcoming tech fair, now reprogrammed to swarm and harass. Each one was equipped with a small electromagnetic pulse generator, designed to play havoc with the aliens' sophisticated armor systems. "They're trying to regroup," Tara reported, her crystalline body refracting light in warning patterns. "Second wave incoming, and they've adapted to the floor treatment." "Good thing we got more than one trick," Zara grinned, nodding to Jun-Ho. The chemistry club's president pressed a button on what looked like a regular fire extinguisher. Instead of flame-retardant foam, it released a carefully engineered cloud of particles that reacted with the Kryvax armor's metal alloy, turning their supposedly impenetrable protection into something with the structural integrity of wet cardboard. From the biology labs came the sound of what the Xenozoology Club had been keeping as research specimens, now released and apparently very unhappy about the aliens interrupting their feeding schedule. The screams suggested that the Kryvax were learning some impromptu lessons about Earth's more interesting species. Principal Chen, Zara reported, watching as another squad of invaders retreated from what they'd assumed would be easy prey. East Wing is secure, though we may need to requisition some new equipment for next semester's science fair. Excellent work, came Chen's reply, accompanied by the distant sound of explosions from the direction of the cafeteria. Maintain position and coordinate with the math club. I hear they've worked out some interesting applications for their theoretical physics projects. Zara looked at her fellow students, humans and aliens united in defense of their school, and felt a surge of pride. The Kryvax had come expecting to find weakness in a learning institution. Instead, they were discovering that knowledge, especially in the hands of teenagers with something to prove, could be the deadliest weapon of all. "Hey Jun-Ho," she called out, watching as another wave of aliens approached, these ones moving more cautiously than their predecessors. "Remember that experiment you were working on?" The one Ms. Rivera said was too unstable to demonstrate in class. Jun-Ho's grin was visible even through his hastily modified lab safety mask. "Already ahead of you. Just wait until they see what happens when you combine xenon compounds with cafeteria mystery meat." The resulting explosion would later require 3 separate incident reports and a complete redefinition of several laws of physics. But as Zara watched the Kryvax warriors fleeing from what they'd dismissed as mere children, she couldn't help but think that sometimes the best lessons were the ones that left scorch marks on the ceiling. Cafeteria warriors. Chief Cook Margaret Maggie Rodriguez hadn't spent 15 years in Earth Fleet Special Operations just to retire and make space lasagna. Well, not entirely. But as she stood in her kitchen fortress, a state-of-the-art facility designed to feed hundreds of students from dozens of species, she realized that perhaps the universe had a sense of humor after all. "Status report," she barked, watching her staff move with military precision through the steam-filled air. The cafeteria had transformed from a feeding station into a command center, with every piece of equipment repurposed for defense. "Industrial freezer units are primed and ready," called out sous chef James Tank Wilson, a former demolitions expert who now specialized in molecular gastronomy. "Liquid nitrogen dispersal system is go. Pressure cookers at maximum capacity," reported Linda Chen, whose previous experience with deep space mining had given her an impressive understanding of how to weaponize common kitchen equipment. "Ready to provide cover fire on your mark." Through the reinforced serving windows, Maggie could see the Kryvax forces regrouping after their unexpected defeats in other parts of the school. The aliens had learned to be wary of the science labs and engineering workshops, but surely, they thought, the cafeteria would be an easy target. Maggie smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "Whole Lineas," she addressed the school's AI. "Activate kitchen defense protocols. Authorization code. Extra spicy." The AI's response held a note of what might have been anticipation. "Protocols activated. Chief Rodriguez, would you like me to prepare the incident report forms in advance?" "Might as well," Maggie replied, watching as her kitchen transformed. Serving counters retracted into armored barriers. Ventilation systems reversed, ready to channel coordinated bursts of superheated steam. Even the salad bar, with its precision temperature controls, became a tactical asset. The first explosion against the cafeteria's main doors echoed like a dinner bell. "Remember," Maggie addressed her team, "we're not just defending a kitchen. We're defending the very principle that allows us to serve 17 different species their cultural comfort foods without starting an interstellar incident. That's not just a job, it's an art." The doors burst inward, and the Kryvax warriors stormed in, weapons ready. They paused, momentarily confused by the sight of what appeared to be ordinary kitchen staff in their white uniforms and aprons. Maggie stepped forward, wiping her hands on her apron. "Welcome to New Earth Academy's cafeteria," she announced, her voice carrying the same tone she'd once used to brief Spec Ops teams. "Today's special is humble pie, served extra hot." Tank activated the liquid nitrogen systems first, flash freezing the nearest alien's armor joints. Before they could react, Linda's modified pressure cookers released concentrated bursts of superheated steam, creating a devastating combination of extreme temperature differentials. "Chemical weapons," one of the Kryvax officers shouted as their armor began to crack. "Actually," Maggie corrected, ducking behind a counter as she triggered another system. "That's just my Feig alarm chili sauce. The recipe's been in my family for generations." She paused. "The weaponized delivery system is new, though." The battle for the cafeteria became a masterclass in improvised warfare. Industrial mixers launched projectiles of flash-frozen food with devastating accuracy. The salad bar's precision temperature controls created zones of extreme cold that the aliens' environmental systems couldn't compensate for. Even the dishwashing station proved lethal, its sonic cleaning systems repurposed to emit frequencies that played havoc with the Kryvax's neural networks. "Ma'am," Tank called out, loading another batch of flash-frozen desserts into what had once been a simple food processor. "They're trying to flank through the staff entrance." "Perfect," Maggie replied, keying in a code on her kitchen terminal. "Time to show them why we installed those special ventilation systems after the Great Spaghetti Incident of 2184. The aliens attempting to breach the secondary entrance found themselves caught in a carefully orchestrated storm of atomized spices and superhot cooking oil. Their advanced armor, designed to withstand energy weapons and explosive decompression, proved remarkably vulnerable to perfectly aerosolized ghost peppers." "Principal Chen," Maggie reported, watching as the last of the Kryvax forces retreated from her domain, some of them actually removing their helmets to try to clear their respiratory systems. "Cafeteria is secure, though we may need to revise next week's menu. We've used most of the main courses as ammunition." "Excellent work, Chief Rodriguez." Chen's voice carried a note of amusement. "Any casualties?" Maggie surveyed her kitchen. Despite the chaos, her staff stood proud, their white uniforms somehow still immaculate. "Just their dignity, ma'am, and possibly their sense of taste for the next few weeks." A groan from near the dessert station caught her attention. One of the Kryvax warriors was still conscious, trying to rise despite his compromised armor and what must have been an impressive capsaicin overdose. Maggie approached, crouching down beside the fallen alien. "You know," she said conversationally, "we serve over 3,000 meals a day here. Each one has to be perfectly calibrated for different biochemistries, different cultural preferences, different nutritional needs." She helped the warrior sit up. "Did you really think we achieved that without learning a thing or two about chemical warfare?" The alien's translator crackled. You're just cooks." "No," Maggie corrected, standing up and straightening her apron. "We're lunch ladies, and you just learned why that's so much more dangerous." Laboratory warfare. Dr. Elena Vasquez hadn't decorated her advanced physics lab with portraits of Einstein, Hawking, and Ambassador Tilara of Alpha Centauri just for them to witness her surrender to alien invaders. As she watched the Kryvax forces regrouping for another assault through the reinforced windows of the science wing, she made some rapid calculations on her quantum blackboard. Dr. Vasquez called out her teaching assistant, a brilliant young android named Atlas. "I finished recalibrating the particle accelerator as requested, though I feel compelled to point out that using it as a weapon violates at least 17 safety protocols." "Atlas," she replied, not looking up from her equations. When the founders wrote those protocols, they probably didn't anticipate alien invasions during midterm week. She finished the last calculation with a flourish. "Besides, we're not using it as a weapon. We're conducting an impromptu practical demonstration of particle physics. Across the hall, Dr. Marcus Wong's chemistry lab had already been transformed into what he cheerfully called a defensive chemistry experiment. The air sparkled with strange compounds, and occasional flashes of improbable colors leaked under the door. "They're approaching Section D," reported Holiades, the school-eyes holographic interface flickering with tactical data. "The Krivaks appear to have adapted their armor against standard energy weapons and chemical attacks." "Standard attacks, yes," Alina smiled, her hands flying over the control panel of what had, until recently, been a perfectly respectable educational particle accelerator. "But I doubt they've encountered weapons designed by bored physics professors with unlimited research budgets." The first breach came through the chemistry wing. The Krivaks, learning from their earlier defeats, had sent in probe droids first. The machines lasted approximately 3 seconds before Dr. Wong's latest creation, a fog that seemed to exist in several quantum states simultaneously, reduced them to their component atoms. "Fascinating," Atlas observed, recording data even as he helped fortify their position. "Dr. Wong appears to have successfully weaponized quantum uncertainty." Marcus always did have a flair for the dramatic, Alina agreed. Status of the physics labs. "All graduate students have been evacuated to the secure bunker," Atlas reported, though several have requested to stay and document the effects of our defensive measures for their theses. The main doors to the physics wing exploded inward, and Alina's smile turned predatory. "Well, let's give them something worth writing about. Initiate Protocol Schrödinger." The Krivaks warriors charged in, weapons ready, only to find themselves facing what appeared to be empty laboratories. Then Alina's modifications to the local space-time fabric kicked in. The aliens found themselves experiencing time at different rates, some moving impossibly slow, others accelerated until they were practically blur. Their coordinated attack dissolved into chaos as each warrior experienced a slightly different version of reality. Quantum field generators performing within expected parameters, Atlas noted calmly, as if they weren't in the middle of turning fundamental physics into a weapon. "Though I believe we may be causing some minor violations of causality." "You can't make an omelette without breaking a few universal constants," Alina replied, activating another system. The particle accelerator hummed to life, but instead of its usual research functions, it now projected a localized field that played havoc with the aliens' mass and momentum. Down the hall, Dr. Wong's voice carried over the comm system, sounding entirely too pleased with himself. "Alina, you might want to duck. I'm about to test my latest hypothesis about metastable exotic matter." The resulting explosion defied several laws of physics and created what Alina was pretty sure was a temporary micro-universe in the biology storage closet. The Krivaks warriors caught in its effect simply ceased to be, though she swore she could hear them screaming in theoretical dimensions. "We may need to revise some textbooks after this," she mused, watching as another squad of aliens encountered her carefully arranged probability field generators. The warriors found themselves experiencing all possible outcomes of their actions simultaneously, most of them unfortunate. "Professor," Atlas interrupted, his sensors detecting new movement. "They're attempting to breach the quantum computing lab." "Are they?" Alina's eyes lit up with academic enthusiasm. "Perfect. Let's show them why we keep that lab at near absolute zero temperatures." She keyed her comm. "Marcus, remember that discussion we had about quantum entanglement weaponization? The one the ethics board said was too dangerous to pursue." Dr. Wong's voice carried an unsettling amount of glee. "Already on it. You might want to warn everyone to avoid looking directly at the results, and possibly avoid thinking about them too hard." The next few minutes were a symphony of theoretical physics made manifest. Gravity reversed itself in carefully controlled pockets. Time moved backwards in others. Some areas of the laboratory complex existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously, making it impossible for the invaders to know if they were advancing, retreating, or accidentally proving string theory. "Principal Chen," Alina reported, watching as the last of the Kryvax forces fled from what they probably thought was black magic rather than simply very enthusiastic science. The research wing is secure, though we may need to submit some revised grant proposals and possibly update a few laws of physics. Excellent work, Chen replied, though her voice seemed to come from both the past and future simultaneously, an effect Elena made a mental note to investigate later. Casualties. Just the universal constants, Elena answered cheerfully. They're pretty flexible once you get to know them. She paused, watching as Atlas helped a shell-shocked alien warrior to his feet, though we may need to offer some remedial physics classes to our visitors. They seem to have some fundamental misconceptions about how reality works. The warrior's translator crackled. This is impossible. Your teachers, educators. Exactly, Elena agreed, already sketching new equations on her quantum blackboard. And today's lesson was about the practical applications of theoretical physics. I do hope you were taking notes. There will be a test later. The final lesson. The Kryvax Supreme Commander, Zarthak the Unconquerable, though that title was becoming increasingly questionable, stared at the tactical display aboard his flagship with what might have been confusion if his species admitted to experiencing such an emotion. The holographic representation of New Earth Academy floated before him, sections highlighted in various colors indicating where his forces had been. Educated. How? He demanded, his translator struggling to convey the mix of rage and bewilderment in his voice. How does a simple school resist the might of the Kryvax Empire? Principal Sarah Chen's voice came through the command center speakers, calm and measured, as if she were delivering a routine morning announcement. Supreme Commander, I've been reviewing your academic record. My. What? Your species' academic record, Chen clarified. It seems you've conquered quite a few educational institutions across the galaxy, but you've never quite understood what education actually means, have you? On the tactical display, another section of his forces retreated from what appeared to be a combination of quantum physics and weaponized cooking supplies. Zarthak's secondary heart began to palpitate. Education, Chen continued, isn't about buildings or books or databases. It's about teaching people to think, to solve problems, to face the unknown and find solutions. There was a pause. Would you like a demonstration? Before Zarthak could respond, his ship's sensors detected a massive energy buildup from the school. In the physics lab, Dr. Vasquez had finished combining her particle accelerator with Chief Rodriguez's industrial mixers and the entire contents of Dr. Wong's chemical storage unit. You see, Chen's voice carried a note of what humans called satisfaction. While your forces were busy learning individual lessons from each department, we were coordinating something more comprehensive. The energy readings spiked. Every screen on the bridge flashed warnings in different languages. This, Chen announced, is what we call interdisciplinary studies. The combined knowledge and resources of New Earth Academy focused into a single point. The physics department provided the theoretical framework. The chemistry lab supplied the exotic materials. The cafeteria's power systems offered the energy. Even the drama department contributed, their holographic systems creating a disruption field that the Kryvax sensors couldn't penetrate. The resulting beam that shot from the school's central spire defied conventional physics. It carried the concentrated essence of human education, the accumulated knowledge of centuries of learning, teaching, and occasionally blowing things up in the name of science. When it hit the Kryvax flagship, reality itself seemed to hiccup. Zarthak found himself and his bridge crew suddenly experiencing what the humans called a crash course in advanced physics, applied chemistry, and creative problem-solving, all at once. The effect was educational. Now then, Chen's voice cut through the chaos on the bridge. I believe it's time for your final exam. You have two options, Supreme Commander. Option A. You can retreat, taking with you the valuable lessons about why attacking human educational institutions is unwise. Option B. We can continue this demonstration, though I should warn you that the physics department is quite eager to test some new theories about trans-dimensional space. Through the viewport, Zarthak watched as his mighty invasion fleet was systematically dismantled by what his intelligence had dismissed as a simple school. He saw warriors fleeing from cafeteria workers, battle-hardened veterans reduced to confusion by quantum physics, the elite shock troops outsmarted by teenagers with science projects. He began, then stopped as his translator vibrated sympathetically with Dr. Wang's latest experiment. Take your time, Chen advised. Critical thinking is an important skill. The decision, when it came, was perhaps the first truly educated choice the Kryvax Empire had made in generations. Zarthak ordered a full retreat, leaving behind several squads of warriors who were still trying to escape the chemistry lab's probability maze. As the Kryvax fleet limped away from Earth space, Principal Chen made one final shipwide announcement. For those warriors we're currently holding in our detention center, formerly known as the gymnasium, remedial classes will begin tomorrow. Attendance is mandatory. She turned to Hollanese, whose holographic interface seemed to be smiling. Update the school records, please. I believe today's events qualify as an excellent practical demonstration of our core curriculum. Of course, Principal Chen, the AI replied. Should I also update our emergency response protocols? Chen looked out over her school, battered but unbroken, its halls still echoing with the sound of victory, and possibly a few unstable chemical reactions. Students and staff were already beginning to clean up, trading stories, and comparing notes on their improvised defensive techniques. No, she decided, watching as Dr. Vasquez and Chief Rodriguez excitedly discussed combining their departments for a new class on tactical applications of molecular gastronomy. I think we've made our point, though perhaps we should add a new course to next semester's catalog. Oh, Advanced Defense Against Alien Invasion. Chen smiled. I have a feeling we've got some excellent case studies to work from now. In the distance, the last Kryvax ship vanished into hyperspace, carrying with it a lesson that would soon spread throughout the galaxy. Human schools might teach peace, understanding, and cooperation, but they were also really good at teaching other lessons when necessary. And somewhere in the chemistry lab, Dr. Wang's latest experiment finally stabilized, though the temporary universe in the biology closet would continue providing research opportunities for years to come. Class dismissed.